Victoria Hand has quietly risen to becoming one of the best decks in the entire game, if not the best deck, after the last two OTAs where Mirage got buffed and Misery got buffed, and she has quickly become one of my favorite decks, and if anything, I think she might be one of the best decks in the game. The deck guide we will be doing today is based off Derek's version of V-Hand, which is a V-Hand Moongirl list. For those of you who don't know, Derek is one of the best Marvel Snap players in the game. He has been #1 multiple times, and he's also won the first Golden Gauntlet. So without further ado, let's get into the card by card breakdown. The first card in the deck is the Hood. The Hood is a 1-3 that generates a 1/6 demon. There's three main things we want to consider about the Hood. Is first of all, the Hood is a 1-3. This allows you to dodge priority against decks with Killmonger. Basically what the Hood you can use him as is, oh, I'm ahead in this lane by a point or two. I can sack the lane 1-3 because I know my opponent is going to play a Killmonger, destroy all my stuff if he doesn't get priority. So I'll sack that lane, I'll go down on power, and then I'll put more power in the lane I'm already established in, and then let him basically win the other two lanes on turn 5. Into turn 6, you drop priority, and then you have a lot of output because of your Moongirl. Let's say you have like a demon or two, you have 2 V-hands, you have a lot more output than this tech deck, but you have drop priority, effectively making it so they can't counter you, and you just win off of sheer points like that. That is one of the interesting things you can do with the Hood, is drop priority. The second interesting thing is oftentimes the demon is the biggest or the second biggest cards you have once they're buffed with V-hands. They're like 112s, 114 sometimes. You could just play the Hood onto other lanes, and basically the Hood is like your mini Infinite. It's like a 112. It's a mini Infinite, and you can just put a lot of power into lanes with these Hoods. So it's very important to consider that from a power output. And lastly, we just need to consider the interaction with Misery. A lot of times if you're playing the Hood on turn 1, you're basically committing that lane to becoming a Misery lane, because the Hood and Misery is just such a good combo that you oftentimes just want to Hood Misery, and you get a ton of value from that. The second card in the deck is Nico Minoru. Nico Minoru has a lot of text on her, but basically there is a few considerations we want to consider Nico Minoru, and I will simplify them for you. The first consideration is the Iron Patriot consideration. Nico a lot of the time could be playing as a very big 1-drop that can help you win these Iron Patriot lanes. The Demon, you can turn Iron Patriot into Demon. Winning an Iron Patriot lane when you have a 1/6 Demon on turn 2 is very easy. You can also use that with the Hood for Iron Patriot, but this is another way to do that. This Draw 2 spell is sometimes useful. This deck really relies on having V-hand, and if you have V-hand early, a lot of times you're winning the game. Let's say you have a decently bad hand, you get this spell on turn 1, you destroy your demon or destroy your Iron Patriot on turn 2, you draw into your V-hand, and now you're very ahead, and now it's a lot easier to win the game because now you have your V-hand, you have your engine going. This is like a consistency spell. This spell location, sometimes it works, it's not really that important. This spell is the same reason the other spell. It helps you with the Iron Patriot lane, the +2 there, plus your Nico, she essentially plays for a 1/4 onto the Iron Patriot lane. A very good thing to do. If not, you can play it onto a different lane. The Iron Patriot plays as 2/5. It's a lot harder to contest the 2/5 than it is to a 2/3. The chain spell is very, very useful in niche locations, like if you have a bar with no name or any annoying locations, the chain spell can do wonders for you, but oftentimes it's not something you can rely on. But it is a very good piece to have something to change locations in this deck. Not have something consistent to change locations, but having something at all to change locations is an absolute godsend in any deck, and I absolutely love this spell. If you see a bad location, a lot of time it might be worth it to wait to play a change spell location on that location, so you actually can see play into that game if your opponent doesn't snap you. And this is the best spell in the entire deck. This is the best spell because you just copy your V-hand and you get a 1-cost that copies your V-hand. A lot of time you're going to be holding Nico Minoru, just waiting for the spell to happen. You do the 1-cost copy of V-hand, you have like another V-hand, and then you Frigga the V-hand, you have 3 V-hands. Somehow you Misery the Frigga with a V-hand, you get 4 V-hands. A lot of time this is like your pop-off thing. A lot of time you're not playing Nico on turn 1, you're kind of choosing between whether you're playing Nico on turn 1. It's not always playing Nico on turn 1. And the last spell is the ×2 double. ×2 double, yet again, is very good with Iron Patriot. So basically, Nico has 2 main modes. I went through all the spells. Her first mode is spells that help you with Iron Patriot. If you are going down that Iron Patriot line and the Nico line doesn't present, not the Nico, the V-hand line doesn't present itself to you, then basically any of those spells that are going to help you in that Iron Patriot lane early are very good on Nico. Then there's the change location spell, that's just utility, it's very good. And then the other mode is, okay, I'm just gonna hold Nico Minoru till later in the game, I'm not gonna play on turn 1. And once he gets that copy on V-Hand, I'm gonna copy V-Hand, do a bunch of other stuff, and it's gonna make me go really ahead. So those are the two modes. It's either you're holding for copy V-Hand, or you're playing it out early to get a high Iron Patriot high roll, both of which are good. Quinjet is a very simple card. I will do this explanation quick and easy. Oftentimes you're playing Quinjet on turn 1. Sometimes you might consider playing the Hood or Nico if you see another line, but otherwise you're always playing Quinjet on turn 1. Second consideration, if your opponent is specifically a Gorgon deck and somehow you know your opponent is specifically a Gorgon deck, you can hold Quinjet and play Quinjet after the Gorgon whenever your curve allows for it. And basically what that will do is that will deny the Gorgon his value because Quinjet will just return everything back to normal. And then the third way you can use Quinjet is when you Moongirl your entire hand, Quinjet makes your cards cheaper. That is a very good thing to do. When you Frigga V-Hand, it makes it 1 cost. That is a very good stat line. And then a lot of the time it will make your Iron Patriot cards either 2 cost or 1 cost, which is a very strong thing to be doing, especially because your Iron Patriot cards are usually pretty good because they cost 5 or 6 and they're costing 1 now. So that is what Quinjet does. He's just a general high roll piece, and that's his entire role in the deck. Mr. Fantastic, very good card. Not much to explain about him. You play him early, he gets a bunch of cost reduction and a bunch of power buffs. He just does a lot of stuff in a lot of decks. This deck specifically, the unique interaction with him is you can reduce cost on your cards like V-Hand, you can reduce cost on your cards like Demon, and then you're Moongirling them, you're Friggaing them, you're copying them in some other way. When you copy a card, it basically doubles up on Fantastic's negative cost and its positive buffs. So there is that interesting aspect of him. Otherwise, Fantastic is just good because he's good in the same way he's good in every other deck. He is just overstated when you play him early, and this deck is very interested in something that is overstated when you play it early, and that happens to be Fantastic. If Fantastic happens to get nerfed, you might look elsewhere into like a card gen, but for now, he's just in the deck because he's just that good. Iron Patriot's actually a flex slot in this deck for any real card generator. Basically, Iron Patriot's role in this deck is another high roll piece. It's basically when you don't draw V-Hand, you can kind of lean into the Iron Patriot. Maybe you get an Iron Patriot high roll, you get like, I don't know, a 5/8 Spider Woman. You Spider, it becomes a 1/8 in your hand, and then you can Frigga the Spider Woman, you can Moongirl the Spider Woman, and then you're playing these like 1/10s with the positive effects. So you're playing essentially, in that case, Spider Woman's like a 1/14, and you can just kind of high roll into your Iron Patriot and lean heavily into those Iron Patriot games when they do present themselves to you. Otherwise, Iron Patriot doesn't do much in this deck. There's other cards you consider here. I've considered Maria Hill. You can consider. She's a 1 that creates a 2. It's not that bad to Moongirl a 1-drop in general, and creating a 2-drop kind of reduces your vulnerability to Killmonger in the same way Iron Patriot does. You can run Kate Bishop, but Kate Bishop is probably not too great. The Moongirl doesn't really like the double card gen, so there is some anti-synergy there, but if you want, you can fit that in. And there's also Invisible Woman as a 3rd flex spot. Is basically the idea of Invisible Woman is, I described to you how sometimes you die to Killmonger decks. You can shove your card behind the Invisible Woman, and basically you can put your demons behind the Invisible Woman, and that protects them from like a Killmonger deck. There's that consideration too. We've considered all these. I've landed on Iron Patriot for now, but at any point it could change to one of those other 4 cards. And that is what I have in that slot, and why I would consider these type of cards in those slots. With the V-Hand buff, Mirage is probably one of the best card gens in the entire game, and I don't think she's replaceable in this deck as she used to be. Basically, the idea with Mirage is a 2/3 still on rate. It didn't feel that bad to play, so the 2/3 is just a good thing to play. And Mirage has something unique about her that other card gens doesn't. She kind of has her own matchup spread. Against Mr. Negative, she becomes nuts. I've copied 0/5 Iron Man, and that is just like a genuinely game-winning thing to do. I Red Guardian their Iron Man, I Red Guardian one of their big cards, and then I play 0/5 Iron Man that I stole from them. Well, not stole from them, but I copied from them. I'm able to contest the negative game now. I play against Discard. The Discard's kind of popping off. They have a 1/8 score and a 1/10 score. And turn 5, I Mirage them. Maybe I sometimes I misery the Mirage. I get 2 scorings. I just popped off. She has like these unique matchup spreads like that, where she's just like, sometimes she's cheating and she's just bigger than she should be. So I've copied Death, and that's just game winning, like a 0/12 Death. I copied like 1/24 Deadpools. There's like all these scaling in hand cards. Mirage has a unique matchup spread against the low cost scaling matchup cards, and she will sometimes just genuinely win you the game. And for that reason, I think she's kind of irreplaceable. But otherwise, she's just value a lot of time. Like, she's just generating me like a 1-5 in hand, or like, let's say maybe like a 2-7 in hand. Quinjet reduce it, it's like a 1-7 in hand. No matter what, he's always been kind of solid. Sometimes in the mirror match, you even like generate a V hand, and that's great. So I think Mirage is just genuinely solid because she has that entire matchup spread to consider with her, on top of just being a card gen that is genuinely good stats on net. So this deck is built around V-Hand, and there's one important thing to know about V-Hand, and that is this deck is built on making as many V-Hands as possible, so always play towards making as many V-Hands as possible. The way V-Hand works is naturally the first V-Hand is always a 2-3, but every other V-Hand scales exponentially. So you play 2 V-Hands, that next V-Hand is a 2-5. If you play 3 V-Hands, that the second V-Hand turns into a 2-7, the third V-Hand turns into a 2-7 as well. You play 4 V-Hands, the 3 V-Hands that weren't the original V-Hand, all are 2-9s that you're playing that buff up your generated cards. So more V-Hands equals better because both they scale exponentially and the cards alongside them scale exponentially. So the entire deck is basically built on the philosophy of creating as many V-Hands as possible. The main ways you do this is you can Nico copy V-Hand, you can Frigga copy V-Hand, or you can use Moongirl to copy V-Hand. So those have unique consideration on themselves. That means a lot of times you want to hold Nico for the copy spell for V-Hand. For Frigga, you are allowed to play V-Hand on turn 2 only if you have Frigga, otherwise you don't really want to play V-Hand on turn 2. And for the same reason, you are incentivized to hold Moongirl so you can copy up your V-Hand. And a lot of times you might play slightly unoptimal plays to get rid of cards on the left side of your hand so that you can Moongirl your V-Hand if you do have V-Hand and Moongirl in hand. So whatever your consideration is, always play towards maximizing your amount of V-Hands, and you will be doing a very good thing in this deck, because V-Hands a lot of time play for like 220s, and it is just a very, very dumb thing to do when your V-Hands are actually really popping off. This is another flex spot. It is basically whatever tech card you want, ideally under 3 cost. I like Red Guardian here. He kind of helps me with like these Kid Omega decks that can kind of pop off, and I can just like deal with them. Sometimes I play like Tribunal or like any Iron Man that could be a bit difficult to deal with. I can get rid of the Iron Man, whatever low cost, very big effect card with Red Guardian, and I enjoy that. Other people have ran like Shadow King. Shadow King is also good because it just genuinely destroys some of the matchups you play against, and you kind of get free wins. You can even play like a Copycat here or a Gladiator if you want a more consistent. You want like a more consistent Iron Patriot, you can play a Gladiator here, and I'll just like make your Iron Patriot a bit more consistent because you have that 1-2 play. So basically, whatever card you want here is fine. 3 under, whatever cards you want here is basically fine. It is a true flex spot in that sense. I like Red Guardian just because she smoothens out some of the matchups with like Kid Omega or Iron Man decks that V-Hand can sometimes struggle against, I find. But it's entirely preference this card. The next card is Juggernaut. It could be anything like Red Guardian. It is another true flex spot. The reason I like Juggernaut is twofold, because one, it helps you with your Iron Patriot consistency. You can Iron Patriot on 2 into Juggernaut on 3. That's a very strong thing to do. Juggernaut also just has a bunch of good interactions to a bunch of decks, which I like. And Juggernaut is just a generally overtuned card, which is why I play him. But it could really be anything in your deck. One thing to consider with Juggernaut and V-Hand decks is if you happen to Moongirl a Juggernaut, your Juggernaut sometimes will play for like a 2-11. You can play a 2-11 in a lane, allowing you to claw back from a lane you were behind by like 10. And then it pushes everything out, and then you can still play your V-Hand stuff in another lane to have a lot of power in one lane with the Juggernaut, which is a generally strong thing to do. So Frigga is a simple and a bit of a complicated card. So let me explain. The main purpose of Frigga is very simply, I play V-Hand on 2, I copy Frigga on turn 3, or you can do that same line on turn 5. I play V-Hand on turn 5 and Frigga on turn 5, I copy that. You always want to play V-Hand last if you're considering playing V-Hand at all. Sometimes on turn 4 you might play a 2-drop or something that was reduced to a 2-drop, and then V-Hand second, and then hope you get that Frigga, you figure it up, and then you get a bit of a high roll there. Other than that, the second consideration is you can misery a Frigga and get a second copy of a V-Hand, but it is in a very particular order you have to do that. So I will explain you the order of how this has to work. So how that has to work is basically what you have to do is, let's say you play V-Hand on turn 2, you play Frigga on turn 3, you would have to play another V-Hand before your misery, and then misery the Frigga, and then that would copy your V-Hand. So basically, let's say I play V-Hand on turn 2, I play Frigga on turn 3. On turn 4, I just play V-Hand for simplicity. Actually, on turn 4, I play Mirage and V-Hand. I play Mirage first and then V-Hand second. And then I misery up that Frigga lane. It will copy the last card I played, which was V-Hand. It won't copy the V-Hand I played on turn 2. It will copy the V-Hand that I played on turn 4 because that was the last card I played. And that is the misery Frigga interaction, and that's the main like confusion interaction you have to know. Other than that, it's all bread and butter plays with like Frigga copying V-Hand, Frigga copying Demon. It's just all these like little bread and butter plays you're playing a lot of the time. But you do notably need to consider that one misery line and how it's a bit quirky to do that. But once you understand that one interaction, you are golden at Frigga. You will be playing Frigga very, very well. And sometimes you have to consider that in another way. You might need to put Demon and Frigga in the same lane to misery them up, so you get both the Demon and you're able to get the V-Hand. There's some complication when you're like maximizing both of those lines, but just consider in the same way that Demon really likes to be miseried, Frigga really likes to be miseried, and you can get another V-Hand. The next card we're talking about is Moongirl. Moongirl is very simple in her application. Basically, what you have to understand about Moongirl is she just creates a very big volume of generated cards, and that is a very good thing to do in this deck. So that's why you want to play Moongirl. There is basically two situations where you'll play Moongirl. You'll play Moongirl on turn 4. A lot of times this is with Quinjet, and you see a line coming down the line that you can hit. Sometimes that's like you played V-Hand and Frigga already. You can Moongirl up your Misery and your V-Hand. You create an extra V-Hand there. So then on turn 5, you can play a V-Hand because your Quinjet has reduced your V-Hand to 1, plus that Misery who costs 3. You Misery up the Frigga, and then you get another V-Hand, and that's like a super, super high roll pop-off with that Quinjet Moongirl style stuff. So that is one of the ways you can play Moongirl. The second one you can play Moongirl is just on turn 5. Basically on, let's say you play that same line where you play Victoria Hand on 2, Frigga on turn 3, and then you focus on turning over your hand, so now V-Hand is in like the first 2 to 3 cards in your hand, and then you play Moongirl or maybe Moongirl with a 1-drop to clear up your hand a bit, and then you copy up that V-Hand, you have another V-Hand, and now you have 3 V-Hands, which is a very, very strong thing to do, and that is something Moongirl allows you to do in another way that involves not doing the misery line. On top of that, there is some considerations that we should consider for Moongirl that I want to outline, and basically it is that effect of hand turnover. Sometimes you might play something slightly less optimal because you're considering that you have both V-Hand and Moongirl in hand, and you need that V-Hand to be on the left side of your hand. So let's say I have a choice of playing a bit more power, but I can play a Red Guardian on the left side of my hand. I can Red Guardian, get a little value there, because next turn I plan on Moongirling, and then I can Moongirl my V-Hand, which is exponentially more power than anything I can do on turn 4. On turn 5 by the end of the game, and I will just do that with Moongirl because that's worth it. It's worth it sometimes to get rid of the cards on the left side of your hand to copy up that V-Hand, because it is just to be so much more power in that consideration. So that is basically what you need to consider for Moongirl. You need to consider, how do I copy V-Hands? You need to consider that sometimes it might be better to Moongirl on turn 4 because Quinjet allows for some funky cost reduction stuff, in the same way Mr. Fantasy sometimes allows for some funky cost reduction stuff to very much high roll. And then the other case is basically, if I'm Moongirling on turn 5, I need to consider that on turn 4, I might need to turn over some of the cards on the left side of my hand, so my Moongirl gets exponentially more value because I'm copying either V-Hands or 1-drops or both, like I'm copying V-Hands and Demons. And that's better than anything I could have played that was a bit more optimal on turn 4, but in the long run it was less optimal. Okay, we're on to the last card. Misery is a very underrated card, and another card that has recently got buffed into the OTA. The main considerations with Misery is you need to be selective in how many cards you want to Misery. Generally, you always want to Misery your Hood, and your Frigga is oftentimes a very high priority to Misery because you can do the V-Hand line. Other than that, try not to stack too many on reveals into that one location that the Misery is in, because that starts to become a problem when, oh, I have the Hood in that lane, and let's say I'm playing a Juggernaut or I'm playing a Gladiator, and some people play Gladiator and if I have a Hood and Gladiator in the same lane, I don't want to Misery that lane. It is very bad to Misery a Gladiator. So you have to consider that where your Misery lines, you very much want a few cards with good on reveals that you want to Misery, but you don't want too many of them. Sometimes you will play the Mirage in there because you want to misery the Mirage. Other times you won't play the Mirage there because you don't want to misery the Mirage. So now that we have that cleared up, that like miserying isn't about miserying the most amount of cards, it's miserying the best cards possible, and just a small volume of misery might just be better because you are destroying those cards. Sometimes the hood and like a Frigga is the only two things I misery, and a lot of time it is that. A lot of times I don't even try to misery like Nico or whatever other cards you might be considering. So with that cleared up, the other thing we need to establish are the basic misery lines you're going to be doing a lot of time. And the 3 misery lines I identify a lot of time I'm doing, actually 4. The fourth one's not really I'm doing a lot though. The first misery line is just the hood. The hood is a bread and butter play. There's not much to explain. You get another demon. That is a very, very good thing to be doing. The second misery line is sometimes you misery an Iron Patriot, you don't have your V hand, you want another high roll option, your opponent decided not to contest your Iron Patriot lane, or he's still down by a lot, you can misery that Iron Patriot, and he's down by enough, you're going to win that misery lane, and then you get 2 Iron Patriot high rolls, and sometimes that's enough to like limp your way forward into winning a game. So that is the second target. A third target a lot of the time is Frigga. I already explained the bread and butter play. You play V hand on turn 2, you play Frigga on turn 3, and then on turn 4 you do whatever, playing another V hand by the end of that turn 4, like as your last card, and then you play your misery on turn 5 to copy up that V hand, so you can play another V hand on turn 6, and you end up getting 3 V hands onto the board like that, and that's a very strong thing to be doing. And then the fourth line is sometimes you get these ridiculous games. I'm talking about like you have like Elysium on the board, you drew a V hand early, and you V hand your Moongirl, and now you have 2 V hands in hand, you play a few cards, and then a lot of the time what I do in these games, because I am a greedy man, and I just super win Elysium games, is I misery my Moongirl, and then I get another 2 V hands, I have 4 V hands in hand, my opponent doesn't know I have 4 V hands in hand, I might trigger a V hand on turn 5 or whatever because I'm playing a funky Elysium game, and then I have like 6 V hands. And if you're running like these Elysium games, a lot of the time it could be a good plan to start very much just focusing on the turnover of your deck and Moongirling your V hand and then miserying your Moongirl to get even more V hands, and then like that you can super high roll in these weird locations where sometimes you Moongirl misery. It doesn't happen often, but sometimes it is optimal to Moongirl misery, and I wanted to let that know so you guys do get those high rolls, because those are some of the funnest games to me when there are the opportunity to high roll with like a Moongirl misery to get the most amount of V hands, and that is just the funnest thing I've done in Snap in a while. And with that, I'll show the deck one last time, but the video is over. So if you guys enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel, and check out my other socials. They're all Heart OTC, Heart OTC Snap, Heart OTC Anime, and then my Twitch is just Heart OTC. Check me out there, and otherwise, I'll see you guys next time, and I hope this deck guide helps you play one of the best decks in the game, and honestly, a deck I can see going very, very far into top infinite. Like, I can see this going all the way to top 10 for me, for others. This is just an absolutely amazing deck that is very, very hard to deal with in general.